Today we are going to talk about what happened to Apple's co-founders. Apple is one of the largest companies in the world. They're going to hit their $3 trillion market cap soon. Everyone who has a phone knows what an iPhone is. This YouTube video script was typed on a MacBook Air, another Apple product. Apple is known as the company Steve Jobs built. These days, you have lots of people in the valley trying to imitate Steve's black turtleneck look to the detriment of society. Steve was Apple's messiah. When the man went on to a better place, everyone mourned his passing. He turned Apple into the cult we all worship today. Without Steve Jobs, there would be no smartphone, just a brick called Nokia. Without Steve's perfectionism steering the ship, many believe Apple lost its soul under Tim Cook's profitable reign. The one thing everyone, including all the Apple employees who hated Steve Jobs for yelling at them every day, can agree on is Steve Jobs left a legacy that would be remembered for decades to come, and that Apple makes a shit ton of money because iPhones are better than Android, allegedly. Our next founder of Apple is Steve Wozniak, the less popular of the two Steves. This Steve, however, was the brains behind Apple during its initial days. Without Wozniak, Jobs wouldn't have had a chance to show the world what he could do given the opportunity. So what has Steve Wozniak been up to these days after he left Apple? In 2018, Steve Wozniak and a couple others co-founded eForce, a crypto startup focused on energy efficiency. Now everyone can benefit financially from worldwide energy efficient projects through the Wozniak's token rewards. They claim to be the world's first decentralized energy platform that, never mind, it's a crypto startup. Almost all of them say the same things about being first, no one cares. The token is worthless now anyway. Steve Wozniak's next project is a little more useful. His newest venture is Privateer, a space company Wozniak founded with Alex Fielding of Ripcord fame and a few others. Alex used to own a company which digitized paper records using vision-guided robotics and advanced sensors. With Privateer, Wozniak plans to remove space debris surrounding Earth's orbit. Most countries and space companies enjoy sending rockets to space, but they don't like cleaning up after themselves. So a lot of debris ends up floating in the immediate vicinity of Earth. There are over 27,000 softball-sized space debris that are currently being tracked in Earth's orbit. However, the actual number is closer to 100 million pieces of debris. They might be smaller, but these small chunks of space garbage might damage the satellites orbiting Earth. Satellites are important for a variety of things, including the Find My iPhone feature, which I have used many times because I forget things, weather forecasting, financial transactions on ATMs, and the Wall Street bet's favorite pastime, the stock market. With Privateer, Steve Wozniak wants to clean up Earth's orbit so he can keep our satellites safe. Outside of his entrepreneurial escapades, Steve has indulged in other more frivolous pursuits. Steve Wozniak put out a YouTube video in response to Louis Rossmann, a self-repairman turned YouTuber, concerning his right to repair videos. The ex-Apple co-founder supported the right to repair movement and gave his reasoning for why the right to repair was so important, which Louis remilked for views. Respectfully, a year ago, Wozniak went on the Steve O's podcast where he showed everyone his stack of counterfeit $2 bills.
There's a printer in this town of Los Gatos that makes these pads for me. Pads of $2 bills.
Are they
real?
real?
Still smell the ink. Yeah, you can still smell the ink. They're freshly printed.
They're not real, are they?
Well, hold on. He gets the supplies from a higher quality printer, and they meet the specs of the U.S. government, these bills. And because they meet the specs of the U.S. government, I've looked it up, they are legal tender. Wow. I've been spending them for like 30 years, and I mean, I don't know if it's the right president.
You've been spending them for 30 years.
Don't want to get ink on me. But no, it's great. And I sell a sheet of 4 $2 bills for $5. Everywhere I go, I sell lots of them. And because it don't cost me $8 for a sheet. And they're legal. The Secret Service has approved them. I've had the police called on me a number of times. The Secret Service approved these bills 3 times. 2 of the times they actually saw the bills. I don't know why it's only 2 of the times. And 1 time they read me my Miranda rights. And when they read me my Miranda rights, I should have brought it with me. I used a fake ID that I made.
Wozniak clearly doesn't need to use fake money. He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He clearly engages in criminal activity for fun. Wozniak handed a couple sheets of cash to the co-host of the podcast as well. Steve Wozniak was last seen on a UC Berkeley commencement speech for spring 2023.
Use your brains. Think for yourselves. Be leaders, not followers, doing everything everyone else is doing in a crowd. Inspire others yourself. Know that you are good for the world. As you depart today, realize that time only moves in one direction.
Ronald Wayne is another co-founder of Apple. Calling him a co-founder is debatable though, since he left midway. All of us know Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak started Apple. So who's Ronald Wayne? Who is this man who sounds like a combination of a duck with anger management problems and Batman's secret identity? What were his contributions to Apple? Well, Ronald Wayne was an engineer both Jobs and Wozniak worked with at Atari. Back then, both Steves were broke. They didn't have money to start making Apple products, but Ronald did. They asked Ronald for cash in exchange for a 10% stake in Apple. Jobs and Wozniak took the money and went to work at once. For those of us watching in from the future, Ronald Wayne was about to be a very rich man. He just didn't know it yet, and clearly he really didn't know he was about to be rich, and it showed. After a week and a half, Ronald Wayne got cold feet. He was worried about Apple failing. Selling 50 Apple I computers to the bike shop in Santa Clara didn't sound appealing anymore. If the startup failed, Jobs and Wozniak were broke. No one would sue them for the money, but Ronald had a car, a house, and a bank account. Any lawsuits would end up in his mailbox. Ronald was already in his 40s and didn't like the risk, so he sold his Apple stock for $800. Today, a 10% stake in Apple would be worth more than $200 billion if it wasn't diluted. Ronald would also receive another $1,500 a year after he sold his part of the company to forfeit his claim in the newly incorporated Apple Computer Company. Ronald was paid twice properly to avoid any future lawsuits from popping out years down the line. Ronald simply couldn't see the big picture and ended up losing out.
Steve Jobs had zero bank account. I had zero bank account. No savings account, no nothing. None of us had any wealthy friends. So Ron Wayne, all of his money would be at stake. So he was taking the 100% of the financial risk for 10% of the company, and it was too flaky, and he sold out. He didn't have a vision. There was a big picture. But it was so early with just the Apple I, it was hard to see where Apple would go. The Apple II really changed the story, and that came about 3 months later.
So it takes a little bit of
But
faith.
I think Ron was with us for a few months.
May get sued. These guys may be out of business. These guys may have this.
I never heard a reason for Ron quitting. Steve just told me he wanted to sell out.
And he walked away from it.
I'm guessing his reasoning would have been good.
He repeatedly showed his lack of foresight, not his fault, by selling the original Apple partnership contract for $500, the same contract that would be sold at an auction for $1.6 million in 2011. Ronald Wayne never regretted his decision to sell Apple. Given the information at the time, Ronald felt selling his Apple shares was a correct decision. These days, he sells stamps and rare coins to supplement his social security income of his mobile home park in Nevada. That sucks. I hope you liked the video. Leave a like if you did, and subscribe if you haven't already. It's much appreciated. See you in the next video.